Welcome to Sterling's Culture Club. We are just a couple of guys who have the insatiable desire to improve both ourselves and the culture around us. That includes anyone and everyone in this area. In this modern age, it seems there's quite a bit of toxicity going around with stress, anxiety, and depression reaching levels unheard of before. We're absolutely fed up with it. So, our goal is to try to change that narrative. Here at Sterling's Culture Club, we believe the only way to change the world is to first gain the understanding that we need to change ourselves. To tackle this goal, we decided to embark on a journey of reading writings of successful people. In short, we're reading books. That is right, we're reading books. They say knowledge is power, and what better way to get that knowledge than to read books? So, we're planning on reading on self-improvement, success, business, philosophy, even human psychology, and we recommend you join the club, pick up a book, and read along with us. Today, and the last discussion, a few more from here, we're going to be reading Zen and the Martial Arts, written by Joe Hyams, a former Hollywood columnist who trained under many different martial arts masters, such as Bruce Lee, Ed Parker, and Jim Lau. And he found that although martial arts is very physical activity, there are many mental lessons you can take that help you in all facets of life, whether that be personal, business, or even relationships. So we went through the last 8 lessons in the last time we talked. Today we're going to go through the next 10. My name is Matt. I'm happy you guys are watching. We got with us here my buddy Tom. Tom, good to have you on here, man. How you doing?
Fantastic to be here. Thank you, Matt.
All right. And then I have a good buddy here, Cedric. Cedric, it's a pleasure, dude. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
There we go.
Woo!
Woo!
Gotta bring some energy to this.
That's right.
We're talking about culture. We're getting smarter here. Get
That's
excited, all right? The key thing to all our members, everybody that's in the club, join the club. Remember, always subscribe to the like button. And subscribe to the subscription button.
That like button.
Constantly subscribing and liking is all we need from you. And commenting and sharing with your friends. Really join the club and, help promote a better culture.
Promote a better culture. That's it, man. It all starts with you. It starts with you. You impact others around you. And then, you know what? It's crazy. It slowly spreads from there. Everyone's happier. Everyone's more successful. And we grow. We become a better race. Human beings. We can do it. Alrighty, so you guys ready? We're reading about 10 lessons today. I think last time we ended off with Do Not Disturb, where Joe was talking about just, spending time versus wasting time. You always want to spend it well. You don't want to let anyone, you don't want to be around toxic people, because when that time's gone, it's gone, right? You never get it back. So I thought that was pretty good. Today, we're starting here with active inactivity. So in this chapter, Bronislaw Kaper, who is actually the guy who got Joe, who's the author, involved in martial arts, he was talking to Joe. He was talking to the author one day. And the author asked him one day, he said, hey, you want to grab some lunch? And Kaper said, no, I'm sorry, man, I can't do that. Just said, well, why not? He said, well, today's my day. I'm doing nothing. I'm taking the day off. I'm doing nothing. And he said, well, what do you mean? Grabbing lunch isn't doing anything. So can't you just do that? He said, no. You got to understand. If I go out and I actually make plans then I'm actually doing something. So I gotta do nothing. And he talked about the importance then, because he related that to Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee explained to him the same thing, that it's good to kind of take a step back every once in a while, and sometimes you got to analyze what's going on. You got to analyze the situation. In terms of martial arts, Bruce said that sometimes when he's fighting a guy, he'll kind of take a second, he'll analyze the other guy's form, and he'll change his style and change the way he's attacking the situation based on the guy's form, but he's got to take a step back. And it seems like in life, when we deal with stressful situations, when we deal with, any kind of anxiety, anything that might be getting us going, it's good sometimes to just take a step back and to look at things from a grander scale. So I got some thoughts on that. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that lesson? What he's talking about in this chapter?
Yeah, I would say taking a step back and kind of looking and trying to analyze what the situation is and how it's happening can be really good. I mean, especially if you can truly step away from it, whether you're analyzing yourself or analyzing something else. But with anything, if you could truly step away and try to give it different perspectives and see how the story that you're creating can be told in different ways, because in anything, it's all about how you look at it, what the story is, and what you're getting from it. And sometimes you can almost mask true reality to yourself because you're telling yourself a different story than what's really happening. So pretty good.
That's a good thought. Tom, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, I always think taking a step back is a good approach, because if you're constantly barreling down the same path, then you have tunnel vision. You're only focusing on one thing, and life is passing you by in the periphery. So the idea of being inactive for a day, it's not really about being inactive. It's you're still doing something. What you're doing is pulling yourself out of that tunnel, relaxing, giving both your mind and body a break after a long journey of working hard, and analyzing where you currently sit or stand. So you are still doing something by taking a day off. It's incredibly good, but the problem is when you have too many of those days and you don't get back on the horse and pursue the goal. That's where a lot of people tend to get stuck. They enjoy the break. It feels good to have a break. It really does. And we can't let that break stop us from getting back and pursuing and going through hardship and going back in the tunnel and pursuing our goals and our mission.
Yeah.
So
seems...
so what you're saying here, Tom, is like that we almost have to like understand the purpose of the break.
Yeah, if you take a break without any sort of purpose, then I feel like you're missing the point of the break, and actually rewarding yourself. Breaks should be rewarding, and they should come after hard work. And you've worked towards a certain goal, you've achieved a goal, and now you're in a position where, like, I reward myself with a break. But the purpose of that break is to give yourself a little rest and have purpose within that rest. If objects in motion tend like to stay in motion, but objects at rest like to stay at rest. If you stay at rest too long and you don't have the purpose, you don't want to go forward, you don't want to go back, forth, and conquer, then you're going to stay exactly where you are, and eventually you're going to become miserable. So you have to you have to have purpose, you have to have parameters, you have to have a circle, essentially, around you, blocking you out from distractions, but you have to also have the confidence to get back out of the circle and put yourself back out there.
So you're talking a lot about purpose. It sounds like you're talking a lot about if you're taking these breaks, you got to make sure that it's purposeful, right? And that's why you mentioned earlier, even though it seems like you're not doing anything, even though it seems like you're inactive and not moving forward, it really is active, And I think a good example you used was, you think about music, right? You think about when music's composed, sometimes there are pauses in the music. And just because there's a pause and you don't hear anything doesn't mean that the music is done. It's adding to the effect of the whole piece, right? But again, there's a purpose in it. And if you do it right, then it leads to something greater. So I guess I agree with that the whole purpose, what it sounds like you're saying though is stepping back, is that more of a reward? Are you saying it's kind of a reward, and if you do that too much, it's bad, or how should you think about it?
Well, I like to. There's a certain idea. Like I have a certain workflow. I like working 90 minutes straight and then rewarding myself with between 15 and 20 minutes rest. That way, I'm consistently giving my mind a break, but once I get back into that 90 minutes, it's all out work for 90. And I can actually work longer throughout the day because I've consistently given myself breaks. Because if you try to work, 8 straight hours in a day, save for just maybe lunch or something, like you're going to burn yourself out.
Unless your Cedric keeps going.
Yeah,
You ever seen those Energizer Bunny commercials? It's pretty impressive.
Fun fact.
No, I don't. I live my life. I just live my life like throughout the day. It's like some people are like weird about stuff, like oh well, what lunch and all this stuff. It's like just day just goes how it goes.
So
Well, Cedric, you got to understand, man. You're working sales. Tom, I don't want to keep interrupting. I know you want to stay on topic, but what's important for everyone, actually, I think this is pretty important because there are a lot of people that work 9 to 5 jobs. Not a lot of people do sales jobs. Cedric is doing sales. He's been trying to get me into it. I do kind of a 9 to 5 job. It's an hourly pay. And just the amount of hours it takes. I have to work all the hours. But Cedric, what would you argue is the difference between, you working your sales job? It sounds like that might be a little more fluid.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's like, if anything, you probably end up working more, but it's just a different kind of work. Because like there's sometimes you're just like sitting there, like I'm like doing a lot of driving, and I mean, I don't know. And like it's nice because it's a lot of just chatting with people. So it's like if you enjoy chatting with people, then it's fine. And like, you can like go to the bank really fast or like little things like that throughout the day. So that's nice. And for me, it's just like you're out in the world. So I just like chatting with people. So it's like you just go out in the world and talk to people. So your job is, and you just like that's all you do. Like it's not super technical of a job. Like it's technical from the sense of finding people and like moving through the process, but outside of that, it's not like you're having to build or create anything. And I mean, people who get really good at it and who are really effective can just make a lot of money.
Yeah. But you're working on people's skills. I think that's something important. I don't know how it'd be possible. I mean, obviously in the system we live in, you need some people working behind desks. You need some people, working, coding and doing whatever behind a desk. But I don't know, man, like in terms of happiness, in terms of kind of finding yourself and really truly living. We talked earlier about living in the present versus, living in the past. And it seems like a lot of this Zen thinking, has to deal with happiness and just being truly happy. I think a more fluid job where you're kind of living life and you're basing your work around your life. I don't personally. I would think that would make you happier.
Yeah, I don't know. I would still say you end up working more because it's like, if anything, I've just found that like I just need to like put in more hours, just get the job done.
To achieve what end?
Just to like be better. I mean, I think that's the whole thing is like, because the other thing is, at least with the way mine is like there's a lot of work you have to do after you sell something. Like there's some jobs where like you don't do anything. It's like you sell it, it's done. But it's like after I sell it, then there's like a bunch of things I have to do. So it's like if you sell a bunch of stuff, then there's even more stuff you have to do. It's like twice as much work to sell twice as much stuff.
So I guess it's all an efficiency thing. I mean, it depends. If you want to get your work done, maybe a salary job's better because it's motivating you to get stuff done sooner. But I don't know. We are definitely going off topic. Tom, we were talking about kind of rewards, and I like the idea of sales. I figured we might as well talk about that because there are a lot of people behind desks and.
Oh well, I guess the pitch for why people should be salespeople is it's a great job if you like independence, if you truly enjoy just talking to people, because you really have to talk to a lot of people, and if you like winning, because there's like a certain like victory of like finally getting a sale and working someone through the whole process and getting it completed. And then also there's a lot like you can make good money doing it. That's what I think do too.
Make relationships.
You don't need to go to college. Like a lot of places, if you can get the experience, like college is not required because most places, unless you're selling like certain technical items, they could care less. It's about selling products. Like if you can be good on the phones and know how to do some basic stuff on a computer.
Good people person. All right. I like that idea. But Tom, I do want to bring this back. For you. I know you were excited about talking about it. So we were talking about kind of stepping back. Let's step back from this conversation and actively understand what the point is supposed to be as a whole. You like that? You like that? Coming back around full circle.
I just love the dishwasher going off in the background there.
Yeah, that's not. I'll have to hold on a sec. You guys talk. I'll mute myself.
It sounds good. Yeah. So no, I actually there's a few topics that are incredibly interesting in what you've shared so far. First up, happiness, and what I heard first with happiness is actually later in this book, just to tie in a point that was made later on, was a certain master, I forget which chapter it was. Essentially, they achieved enlightenment, and everyone was super excited. Like, you've achieved enlightenment. How do you feel? Do you feel happiness now? And he says, I feel as miserable as ever.
Oh, you might be ahead of us. That wasn't in any of these chapters we read, but I know what you're talking about because I did read through this book.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's in one of the last chapters. It's like
Yeah. It's good. It's good, but that's really what enlightenment is, and we'll talk about that more in depth.
Yeah, we will. Okay, so maybe we'll save that conversation for part 3 then. But
no, well, dude, if it links up to this, man, go ahead.
That's fine.
Shoot. This is supposed to be a fluid conversation. We're having a good time.
So the
culture should be fluid.
The part about happiness that I find incredibly interesting is that I'm not a personal believer per se in happiness. At least the common cultural understanding of happiness. I think
it's a strong statement.
Yeah, I believe that most people lie about what they. If someone asks you, "Are you a happy person?" you're gonna lie to them most of the time and say, "Yeah," but there is a general. I feel like happiness, as we understand it, is rather just a consistency. It's how unmiserable are you? Are you in a state of consistent misery, or are you in this level of I'm happy, I'm not miserable? And I feel like tons of people are miserable that say they're happy, just because we're social creatures and we like to let other people know we're doing good. Essentially, Instagram, right? Like, you only post the top 10% of photos or videos you take because all the other stuff you think is just total crap.
It's not true. I think all photos
it's
are
not
great.
True. It's not true.
You put in the time to put it on there. I'm gonna look at it. I might not like it, but internally I do, and take pride in that.
Yeah. What do I think is more along? What should happiness be? I feel like happiness should be a consistency of not being in a miserable state. That you have a consistent you have consistent moments in your life, however you want to define it, where you are doing something that's incredibly memorable, incredibly unique to yourself, that you take with you every single day, that you like to think about, like you like to remember. I feel like that is happiness. Whereas there's also tons of moments out there where you've been miserable, you've been hurt, and you don't like remembering those, but that has made you into the person you are today. So what is happiness then? Happiness is just this consistent state, I think. I think happiness in our culture is most synonymous with consistency. Whereas actually living a true and fulfilling life is doing things that are memorable and unique to you, that give you an emotion of elation and pride and joy. I feel like those are the moments we should be living for, but instead we like to work 9 to 5s and call ourselves happy when we're really not. But we should be working for the moments that give us true joy, true pride, and a fulfilling life. I feel like those are, if we're working towards something, you shouldn't be maintaining my happiness quota, because happiness is purely consistency. So that is what I think is most in line with what this book ultimately teaches at the end. It's like you've achieved enlightenment. What have you learned? How do you feel? I feel as miserable as ever. It's like, okay, I want to be someone who consistently is striving and achieving goals, because that is ultimately going to raise my level of happiness. I don't want to be at a consistent level where I'm just staving off misery. I want to keep achieving more. I want to keep building. I want to keep creating, because that gives me joy. And every time I accomplish something, I am building a more unique and interesting life that is more and more my own than anyone else's. Because everyone has a 9 to 5. Obviously, not everyone, but everyone has a 9 to 5. And that's consistency. And if that is what we're calling happiness in our culture and our society, I think it's purely wrong.
I got some thoughts on that. Cedric, what do you think? So before we do, so I was looking up, because I listened to a podcast about this a little while ago on the show. It's called Philosophize This. And I believe it was talking about Epicureanism. Have you heard about that philosophy, Epicureanism? Tom, I know you like your philosophy.
It's really old school. That was in line with Stoicism. It came around the similar time.
Yep. So the Hellenistic age, right, was right after, I think was it King? It wasn't Arthur. It was Alexander the Great, I think. One of them had passed away, and he didn't name an heir, right? So he passed away, and then the whole kingdom went into chaos because there was no one to rule it. So there were all these people trying to find all these different kinds of philosophies. One of them was Epicureanism. One was Stoicism. Stoicism was the largest one. Then he had, it wasn't pessimism, it was a cynicism, and there's another one. But I believe, if I'm not wrong, Epicureanism was based off this guy Epicurus, and he talked about happiness, right? And he pretty much, I believe his main argument was that, to be happy, truly happy, is to be without mental pain. So he really focused on the mental side of things. He mentioned how a lot of people, when we're happy, we try to keep going. We try to keep getting happier. So let me try to break that down. So say you are talking to someone and you're real excited. Say you're in a pretty good state. Well, you think, oh, well, if I drink this beer here, I'll be happier, because in the past I've drank beer and it makes I calm down, I loosen up, I'm happier. Well, now you drink more beer and you're getting happier and looser. But he says that there's kind of a tipping point. There's a point where you get too much dopamine release or whatever it is, and then it kind of starts to go down, and then you're kind of actually going the opposite direction. So his belief was, in order to be truly happy and to maintain that happiness, you just want to be without any kind of mental strain. So if you can get into a state where you're not complaining about anything, nothing's bothering you on a mental state, then try to maintain that state, and you'll be happy, right? I guess that's kind of more of a literal happiness is a lack of sadness type of mentality. Do you guys kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very in line with my belief of happiness. But I don't think at the end of the day or at the end of our lives we think of, was I a happy person or a sad person. I think we like to think of specific moments and goals and accomplishments we achieved, and I feel like you have to go through periods of, for lack of a better word, suffering in order to achieve those goals. Think of like working hard. If you're someone who's working out to build a better body, you're putting strain and stress on yourself. Mm-hmm. But that's building you up to be a bigger, better, healthier person. And when you achieve that goal through that stress, through that hardship, through that misery in some cases, you come out a better person and your mental state has risen. So I believe that happiness, if you're just trying to maintain the status quo and avoid stressful moments, avoid suffering to get through, you're not going to achieve your goals, and you're going to have less of those moments that you look back on where you're like, I did that, I'm proud, I accomplished this. Because it's going through those moments of suffering and hardship that make us better people.
Sure.
And
So,
that's what my thing is. So tying that back all the way to the chapter we've been discussing, we've gone on this
yep.
this long road. Taking those moments to step back to reflect, is what I'm going through right now worth the goal?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yep.
what you gotta, that's what you have to ask yourself. Is this worth it? Are my current means justifying my ends? That's a point I always come back to. Is, are the means justifying the ends? It shouldn't be thinking, but you should also think back to, like, okay, I've achieved my goal. Was this process worth it? So that's when you gotta take a step back and you gotta think and you gotta reflect. Because if you're constantly just going forward, then you're in that tunnel vision and you don't see the possibilities and opportunities around you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's really well thought out, man. You really vibed with this chapter or what?
No, like, we were just kind of discussing happiness, and I think happiness in and of itself is a fraud. I think it actually prevents us from being what most people characterize as being happy.
Yeah, so I kind of find issue with that. I think fraud is a very strong word. I think that can be definitely construed in the wrong way. What you were saying earlier about, hold on, let me make this full screen. So what I was saying earlier about what you were saying earlier about how people, you can ask them, oh, have you been happy? And they'll say, yes, I have. That's one aspect of it. What you said, oh, well, to comply with everyone, so everyone thinks you're happy, you'll just say you're happy. But another issue that, people may not think about is we have an availability bias, right? So if someone asks you, if you've been happy, what we may think of is, oh, well, the last few days, have I been generally happy? And if the answer is yes, then you'll say, oh, yeah, I've been happy. Or if the answer is no, you'll say, yeah, I've been okay, for the most part. That's generally how people think because, again, our minds and our memories are so limited that, I guess there's only so much that we can really pull on when we answer a question like that. So to really truly answer that question, you would have to get past that bias. You'd have to put in the cognitive strain to really think about, well, okay, let's think back the last, how about year? No, let's start with a month. Okay, a month. Have I been generally happy? Let's consider the different days. Okay, I guess more often than not, I've been happy. Yes, I've had okay, nothing really too bad's happened to me. Let's think back 2 months now. Okay, yeah, same thing there, and then keep going back. And if you put in enough time to really think about it, then you can give a true answer. But the thing is, if people don't know about that bias, people don't know that that exists, then how can you blame a person for falling for it? How can you blame anyone for falling into a trap if they don't know that the trap's been set? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Cedric, what do
people
you
do
say?
have to take
Well,
responsibility for
you
themselves.
guys just been doing a big back and forth.
Yeah,
So
I
I
want to hear
guess
Cedric
my my opinions on like happiness as far as that goes is to I think there's plenty of different ways to be happy, but I think one of the biggest things is like I'm not particularly religious myself, but I think that like just blind faith in something I think is really good, and then
Mm-hmm.
like having faith in something, like just believing in something makes you happy.
In anything,
Yeah, yeah, doesn't matter what it is. I think it kind of can make you happy. And then I
we need
also think
purpose.
that feeling,
Purpose.
yeah, yeah, giving yourself purpose, and then
Purpose.
feeling as though you're blessed, like however you want to put that, like things are going good, regardless of how they're really going, because
Yeah.
you're going to, come part, like you could become the president and still things aren't the way you wanted it to be, and you can still be very unhappy. So you can be a billionaire and still be unhappy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just, but feeling as though you're blessed, because I mean, there's plenty of people out there who have horrible lives, very, very hard. No, nothing that probably you or I would ever want to do, any of us. And
Yeah.
those people are very happy. They're in their mind, they are the most blessed person ever because they have everything they've ever wanted, and then some. And I think that like that feeling, of like almost like contentment with where you are and what you're doing, is what would lead to happiness. Now, with that, I think it can almost like I think being uncomfortable and wanting more will also cause you to accomplish more. But
Hmm.
I think you could like it's a balancing act, of being like, uncomfortable with where you're at, but still being happy with everything that you have accomplished, like what Tom was saying.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of lean on those like past experiences, um, and how those are really good and how you were so fortunate because of them.
So that's a good point, Tom. Doesn't that make you think of Robert Greene and what he was saying about religion and how it's like the most seductive force in the world, religion?
Yeah, but I think the through line of that is purpose and responsibility. People like to believe that they're here for a particular reason, whether that reason is objectively right or wrong is irrelevant. It's, do you believe in something greater than yourself? And do you believe that your life is, like this is anti nihilism, right? Where nihilism, nothing matters. So
Hmm.
why should I do anything that matters? Why should I be responsible? Why should I be purposeful? Because it just all doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah.
Of course, there's tons and tons of different interpretations of nihilism out there. I'm just saying in broad strokes. But I believe people need to have something to believe in to move forward, whether that's a belief in their goals, their passions, their direction.
Hmm.
People need to be consistently looking forward towards something. Another quote that comes up near the end of this book actually is, you never actually. Everyone thinks that once they achieve what they've had their eyes on, that suddenly life is this great paradise like heaven or something like that, where it's not really. You climb over the rock, you climb over the fence, and you look over and you realize there's another fence.
Grass is always greener, right? It's the
Well, no,
thought.
it's the idea that you've climbed over one rock, but there's always going to be another rock. um, and as soon as you accomplish one goal, you move on to the next. And a lot of people can look at that and say, "Well, what's the purpose of climbing over rocks my entire life? I'm just gonna stay exactly where I am." So they're just like, "I'm gonna get to a point where I'm just generally happy, and I can just be consistent, play video games, go out every once in a while, spend a bunch of money, and generally just not think about the pain that's going on in my life of staying here and staying consistent and staying
Hmm.
exactly where I am."
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like if you keep climbing over those rocks, you keep getting stronger, you keep gaining more perspective, you understand a broader sense of life. And if you believe that there is truly that grass is greener on the other side approach, I feel the grass greener on the other side is when you look back at the rest of your life, where you can physically or mentally can no longer climb over rocks, and
Yeah.
you look back and you look at just how far you've come, the journey. It's not about the destination, it's the journey. So I believe that level of purpose is what makes people
All right.
joyful.
Oh, he's still going.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
What's the next
Tom, you
chapter
cut out
after
a little
this?
bit there. Huh? Um, so I didn't catch that, but I'm happy that we kind of hit a break because, first of all, Tom, you are shining today, man. All those thoughts going
I'm
on, I
sterling
love it.
today,
We're
thank
having
you.
great conversation, very sterling. But we're already 30 minutes in. We're only on the first of 10 lessons we got to go over tonight, so we are gonna have to move on. I think the important thing to take from that is just you need to step back. Whatever you gain from that lesson, mostly it's going to be internal. It's mostly going to be personal, but it is very important to step back. You can gain a greater understanding, as Thomas Sterling here seemed to lay out. I would have to say that can only happen if you take the time to step back. So maybe step back from your busy life and move on. You guys ready for the next one?
Oh yeah, give it to us.
We're going to flip it on its head. The last one was active inactivity. This one is inactive activity. All right. So in this one, Joe's talking to his master, Jim Lau. Jim Lau was a martial arts master in Wing Chun. Wing Chun is a very fast, quick paced. It seems very close combat type of style. Um, I think Bruce Lee might have taken some of his art form from Wing Chun. Bruce Lee did Jeet Kune Do, right? And I think he took some of it from there. Uh, Gosh, we're gonna have to verify all this stuff. But anyway, he was talking about how they would do this drill called sticking hands, where they'd put their hands together, and what they would have to do is they'd have to analyze their opponent, analyze kind of the pressure in the other opponent's hand, and try to guess what they're doing before they do it. And what happened with the authors, he always got impatient, right? What he would do is he would sit there for so long, and then he'd try to land a blow. And he would try this with Jim Lau, his master, but Jim would always block him. He would always catch him before he actually threw a punch or whatever, and he would always block him. And so when they were done with the lesson, Jim said, "Hey, listen," he's like, "you need to understand that sometimes it's important to really step back into, well, not step back, but you have to analyze, right? So I guess this kind of goes hand in hand with the last thing we are saying. First, it's important to step back. First, it's important to kind of take a break from your busy life and from what you're doing. But while you're doing nothing, you have to be actively analyzing the situation, right? Because otherwise, there really is no purpose to it. Right, and that seemed to be what Jim was talking about. Joe talked about he watched some kind of martial arts fight, and he saw these two masters were, looking at each other for however many minutes, and then one guy saw the other guy flinch, and he came and he like karate kicked him, and it was pretty sweet. But um, before that, or after that, excuse me, he went back and he told Jim about it. He said, "Yeah, so now you're seeing it. I mean, you got to analyze things while you're stepping back." Right? And that's why I called it active inactivity. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I like this one a lot, just because at least what I got from it, it's like you got to sit there and wait for your moment. Like that's what it is. It's like you're being patient. You're understanding that at some point there's a right time, and at that time you need to go all in. And I feel like that's what I got from it. It's just like if there's like once the opportunity presents itself, then you give it 100%. But you don't just rush into it. Make sure you know that that's the right decision and then go.
Yeah.
Um, which I've always thought was a good idea. There's like this quote. I'm gonna try not to do it the best right now, but it goes something along the lines. It's like good leaders, or he's like bad leaders, um, um, are quick to decision and quick to change. Uh, all right, and then good leaders are slow to decision, or what is it? Are quick to decision and slow to change. Which I mean it's a little different, but I actually didn't really relate. Sorry, I don't know why I was relating that to this point. No, it's not
Well,
relate. After thinking
it
about it, but
sounded like you were saying because a good leader doesn't just make a quick reaction to a problem. A good leader would kind of step back and analyze the situation and think about it a little bit, effectively, however much time it might take to do it effectively. Yeah.
oh yeah, I guess really where I was going with it is that the whole point is basically that they don't change. Like when they make a decision, they're not going to change it. They're going all in, and that's his choice, and that's the way it is. And that's where I feel like he was going with it. It's just like wait for your opportunity, and then it's 100%. Don't don't like once it presents itself, you're going all in, and you're kicking him in the face because it's sweet.
Yep. It is pretty sweet. I enjoyed
Pretty
doing
sweet.
that. Tom, what are your thoughts?
Can
Looks
we
like you're
get
looking
can we
up
get
some.
merch that just says it is pretty sweet, and
It's
then
pretty
it's just
sweet.
like a book that looks like a cake?
Hmm. It is pretty
I'm
sweet.
trying to
Books are
pull up a
pretty sweet,
quote.
man.
I'm trying to pull up a quote by Xerxes right now, the former Persian king.
Xerxes.
Xerxes, yeah. Let's see.
Ah, I saw him in a movie
Quote.
once. It's pretty large individual. Pretty intimidating. He didn't do martial arts, not in that movie. What are you thinking, Tom? What are you looking this up for?
Yeah, unfortunately, just a bunch of 300 stuff comes up.
It's a good
So,
movie.
so essentially, his quote in a nutshell, I would have liked to pull it up, in its glorious entirety. And since this is a chapter on impatience, essentially, and warning about impatience, the quote from Xerxes is, we can't sit and wait and be inactive. We can't wait and be inactive when we know we don't have all the facts. We do need to be active and make decisions with the best knowledge we have at the best time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a balance. If you can always wait for that perfect moment, it will likely never come. But if you act hastily, then it may be premature, and you may get run over for it, essentially. So you need to strike a balance where you are confident in your decisions. And I believe here where the lesson is that you don't act out of emotion, because impatience is an emotion. It's not logical. It's not logical. Impatience is not some, rational or logical phenomenon.
So what exactly is impatience?
Well, impatience is a moment where we're creatures that have a keen sense of the value of time, and we're the only species that seems to understand past, present, and future.
So we're not the only ones that understand impatience, though, because you have a dog and you put, say, a treat, on a table and tell them to wait. They get impatient, jump up there and get that treat.
But is the dog thinking rationally or logically about the fact that if he waits and sits and does good, that he's likelier to receive the treat quicker than if you're act impatiently, which is out of emotion, which is out of drive, which is out of a hunger for that treat? That would be my point, is that the dog is acting out of emotion. Whereas if you're thinking about the problem logically, it's best that he obeys his master's order, because he'll likely be rewarded faster.
If I could talk to dogs, I'd have a better answer for you.
Sure. So
I think he would if he could talk to dogs. I feel like I would have a really good answer for you, Tom.
I was trying to use your example, but
Tom thinks I'm full of it, but it's true, Tom. I would have a good answer for you.
But we live in a culture today where instant gratification is a thing, and we act hastily, we act impatiently, and it's out of a driven emotion more so than any rational or logical thought process. Acting hastily is acting hastily, and acting prematurely is acting prematurely. And it's it's an emotion. It's not something that is logical.
So what I would say is, because personally, Tom, I don't think impatience is an emotion itself. I think impatience comes from emotions. I think impatience is us feeling pain, and the pain that I don't think it's a physical pain. I think it's a mental pain, because we're so used to things coming to us so easily. We live, as you said, in a culture, in this world, especially with social media and all this advancement in tech, where dopamine hits, they come faster and faster, and we get them more and more. And so that impatience comes from the pain of not getting those as quickly as we're used to getting them, right? So really, maybe it's anger. Maybe it's a type of anger that's because we want it now, just as we've gotten it in the past. So I'm not happy that I'm not getting this now, and that's where that comes from. I think it comes from anger, and maybe a little bit of fear. Maybe a little bit of fear that if we do wait any longer, it might not come to us. It's my 2 cents. I don't know.
I completely agree with that sentiment, that if we don't act now, then it won't come.
Mm-hmm.
Type idea. I think that's definitely an element in impatience. For sure. Cedric, any thoughts?
No.
So, hey, you know what? Cedric summed it up earlier perfectly. I thought, because I totally forgot about that part. I mean, it's the biggest lesson I took from this was that, when you do step back, when you do find that point where you can strike and you can take full, make full effectiveness out of your attack, then take it. And you need to go full force. right? Once you see your opportunity, take it. That's the most important thing, I think. But it comes from stepping back and actively looking for that point to take that step. So that was definitely very powerful. Um, I'm happy we got through this one in about 15 minutes. That tells me we're gonna have a good time going through the other 7.
Beautiful. Let's
You
go.
guys ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Extend your key. Extend your key. This was a good one. This one actually got me pretty excited. I like when they talk about this chapter is talking about Aikido. Aikido is a form of Japanese martial arts. They say it's more of a natural, kind of like you're going with nature, and you're not necessarily throwing blows. You're kind of making someone else fight themselves, if you want to call it that. I think the way they described it was perfect, and they said that when a force meets you head on, instead of facing it head on yourself, you go to the side and then you push that force from the back and make it, redirect that force, redirect that anger or whatever's coming at you. So when you're talking about ki, this one, I think it was more so of what you can physically do with martial arts and how you can physically use this skill to help you. I don't know if it was necessarily a lesson, but what he was saying, ki was a natural, like a life force. They said it's in Aikido, I guess they believe that, it originates kind of in the center of your belly, right? That's the center point of your ki, of your life force, and it extends out. And they say that the ki is like the center of the universe. And just the author said, I'm going to say it the same thing. It is a little esoteric. Would have to look a lot more into the philosophy behind it to understand it. But, essentially what they're saying is, through this ki, you can accomplish great things. It's more so from what I picked up on it was mind over matter, right? He used the example of, when a baby is mad and a baby doesn't want to get picked up from a crib, the baby is usually heavier. Crazy. Well, when the baby wants to get picked up, he's a lot lighter. It's weird how that happens, right? Then you've got people who say you have a friend and their leg is pinned under a car, and then suddenly you gain that strength to pick up that car, right? So it's definitely mind over matter, and I think ki is just their personification of this ability to use your mind to do incredible things. And they're saying that if you master this skill, you truly can master Aikido, or this redirection of forces and power. And this is very natural. I like the idea of everything being natural and everything being a circle. So I really like the idea of Aikido, and ki would have to look a lot more into it. What are you guys' thoughts? It's a tough one to lead into, huh?
Yeah, no, I should have been taking more notes.
Ki.
Just because I was thinking about my own things.
Well, what did you think about ki?
Oh well, I mean, for me, it just like all kind of went with like when they talk about breathing, but what's it? Damn it! Do you hate when you have an idea and then you forget the idea?
And it goes away. That's okay.
Yeah,
Tom, what are your
sure.
thoughts, man? We come
What
back.
was it?
So, I mean, I like the idea of ki. If we believe ourselves to be points in the universe here, then expanding that point and pushing outwards is essentially what this chapter is about. And furthermore, he gives an example of how he went to, I believe, an Aikido lecture or seminar, whatever it was, in England.
Mm-hmm.
And the master, his philosophy essentially was be like water and redirect. Be consistently elusive. Don't be so easy to grasp. And the way he had this in his fighting style, the way he had this in his fighting style,
I'm gonna grab him. I'm gonna grasp him one of these days.
The way he had it in his fighting style was in this lecture or seminar. He was surrounded by a bunch of guys way larger than he was, but he was incredibly elusive, and he just tired them out. And to the point where he leveled out the playing field and could actually begin fighting back more on a one-to-one physical level.
Yep.
And I feel like that's great advice for business or just thinkers. We telegraph to people what we're doing always. We're on social media, we're always telling people what we're thinking. We're always, showing them, who we are and what we're doing. A lot of it is really fake, to be honest. Uh, but I think applying Aikido, and the key to your life every single day is how do you expand outwards while also remaining elusive and flowing and redirecting other people's energy where it's not directed purely at you, but it's directed to another place. Because that, what I was reading about Aikido, that's a big part of it. Is if someone's attacking you, you're trying to redirect their anger. You're trying to redirect their force. You're never trying
Yeah.
to meet them head on. That's the idea
Yeah.
behind the fighting, and that's the idea behind the philosophy. Is that you're consistently redirecting hostility and hostile emotions towards you, towards other means and other matters.
It's very elegant. It's a very elegant. I don't know if you guys have seen videos on Aikido. I've been watching a bunch of videos. A lot of other mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is one of them. A lot of other martial arts seem to make fun of them, they say, because they say it's a ineffectual martial art. And if you watch some of these videos, it is kind of tough to think of how this could be used in real life situations, especially against someone who is using another form of martial art. Because a lot of the practices, a lot of when they show these, it's like the people that are coming at you are they're not really, you can tell they're not really coming at these people with the intention to hurt. It's more like they're coming at them and allowing them the opportunity to utilize their skills and utilize their forms and flip them around and throw them around. um, so that's definitely very important, and I think it'd be really cool to take Aikido and make it into an effective martial art. I think you'd have to mix it with a bunch of others, which is MMA is definitely a thing.
Yeah. I sorry. The reason why I got taken off, I was thinking about
Yeah,
just like myself and my own life, and like how just like there's the lessons impact me, and just like what you want and what your goal is, and how focusing your, I mean, and I'm going to use the term energy towards that goal, or having a certain mindset will change your energy in the way that it's being directed.
hmm
And using the principle that Aikido talks about, if you can somehow redirect that energy to a positive sense, so in this case, defending yourself, but applying it back to your life, if you can, take that energy, whether it's positivity, whatever it is, and have it, just start to engulf you. And then when people come at you, you can somehow, redirect their energy in such a way that is advantageous for you. And, just keep kind of doing that. Um, well, not not necessarily any framework for it, but I do like the idea of just like energy, and just understanding that if, it is kind of what you want it to be to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean it's all redirection, and it plays into life too. This is another chapter. Maybe I'll kind of leave it because it is a little later on. But that idea of redirecting, especially in life, especially when people come into your life who are, say, browbeaters, or they want to intimidate you, they're just provocateurs. It's good to redirect, right? Because sometimes it's not the right move to take something head on, right? Because a lot of these people, a lot of these provocateurs, what they do is they feed off of the conflict. So if you give them conflict, like a fire, give a fire more twigs, it'll grow hotter, it'll grow bigger. So you take that away from them, take away the oxygen, take away the twigs, it's going to die out, it's going to simmer out. So sometimes it is good to, kind of redirect some of these attacks and some of these forces. In terms of key, it's good to know that there is this ability within us to change what's going on in the world. It's good to know that the mind can affect what the body does. We all have that idea that we're limited by our pain. I think it's mostly by the pain that people feel. You hit some threshold, and then you think, oh, I can't do it. It's impossible. But you really push yourself. There's a lot more the human body can accomplish than you think, right? And he plays a big role in that. And then it definitely plays a big role in redirection of forces and pain as well. So, you guys have any other thoughts on that, or what are you thinking?
Oh, I have tons of thoughts on this.
Tom has tons of thoughts. Thomas, go ahead, baby.
Oh,
I,
give it to us.
Aikido as a physical one-to-one fighting strategy in the physical world as a martial art. I think it does tend to it's not as effectual as other more aggressive hands-on grappling martial arts. Of course, it depends on the fighter and stuff. But I think the philosophy and the practice of Aikido in the mental world, in the mental and cyber world, in the information world, is more relevant than ever. It's actually probably single-handedly the strongest, most effective philosophy towards engaging others in the arena of ideas and thoughts. And what I mean by that is if you consistently in rhetoric, in social media, redirect toxicity, whether you're a brutal dictator or someone who's trying to make the world a better place, redirecting from your message, hate and hostility, it allows you to rise. If you're consistently under massive pressure, massive hate all the time, there's only very few people and personalities out there that can rise above that. So you need to consistently be redirecting hate towards other things. Or
redirecting
bad ideas.
How?
What?
It sounds like it's got to be important we define what you mean when you say redirecting. What are you doing when you redirect this hate?
If you're trying to advance yourself, if you're trying to advance your career, yes, was it sometimes bad press is good press, but not all the time. You want to be redirecting. He gives an example later in this book where a coworker was being hostile towards him. He knew he was going to be hostile. And eventually, basically, he diffused the entire situation by redirecting it towards another problem, while also admitting to the fact that that person's feelings are valid. That way, you keep it from yourself and keeping it personal. You don't want it to be personal. That's what I'm basically trying to relay.
Yeah, so I guess you're redirecting a negative into, I guess, fuel for your own fire to be more motivated to do something positive, so that negative aspect doesn't impact you again.
Here's to use the word again, redirecting. You're redirecting negative emotion towards other places that are more positive.
Yes.
While absorbing as much positivity as you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because, anyone who might not understand the redirecting, it's not that you're redirecting a negative impact onto another person, right? You don't take what someone says to you and throw that anger towards someone else. That could we'll talk. That's another chapter here. It's another lesson, but that could be worse. So it's important that when you redirect, take something negative, make it positive.
Yeah, understanding the benefit that you actually receive from the thing that just happened to you, not seeing it as something that's somehow so bad. A thought I had, just kind of playing off this, is people always act like the world's against them. They're constantly like, the world's against me, and that's the most fucking, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, when did the world care so much about you that it would literally change itself to impact you negatively? Like you're somehow more important than anybody else. It's like the world's not against you. It's Oh yeah, Matt is. Yeah, very true. But yeah, but it's just the idea that the world
everyone has
doesn't
that
care
thought
nearly enough.
Everyone
to be
has
you,
that thought.
Yeah,
So,
we have to understand that negativity is an energy, and Zen and this book, a lot of it is based on these ideas of energy, life forces, ki, whatever you want to call it. Negativity is an energy, and putting it into a place where you can turn it into something productive and helpful and insightful and
Yep.
positive
yep.
is how you're going to not only build yourself up, but build others around you, even the people that are trying to spite you.
Yeah.
That would be my
Yeah, that's
opinion
big,
on that.
man. That's big. And, it's a lot tougher than it sounds, right? Take someone who's yelling at you, who's browbeating you, and make that into a positive. Well, gosh, if I'm angry, if someone's yelling at me, first of all, I'm going to get really mad, Tom. I'm going to want to throw that right back at the guy. That's the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is to say, this guy doesn't like me and he's saying stuff. What does it matter if I say insult him or get in a fight with him? It doesn't matter. That's what he wants, and I'm just going to give it to him because it's the easiest thing to do, and it's the easiest way to get past my anger. But unfortunately, if that happens, what are the consequences? What are the
Oh yeah,
consequences if you get in a fight with a guy, or if you yell at this guy who, oh gosh, turns out actually he's your boss's friend. Turns out this
oh
guy was
yeah,
really close to your boss, and gosh, now he doesn't have good opinions to say about you, man. And maybe if you step back and utilize that to build your tolerance to people who say yelled at you, you could have, you know, taken it in and brushed it off, but now you might get fired.
yeah. And then even with that, sometimes your own ego can get in the way because you think that there's something happened that never did.
Hmm.
Um, in your head, it's like, oh, it's a whole big thing, and it's like if you were to just see it in reality, you'd be like, well, it's nothing. Like there was no reason for me to just react that way.
Yeah.
And it's just because you're just so much in your own ego, you can't even see it.
Or
Like in
the
this
complete,
light.
or
I
the
guess like
complete.
going with the pride stuff from way back when.
Ego's big, man. I don't think they talk about ego enough in this book, but ego's huge. I mean, it's all the little bit of narcissism in all of us, right? We call, okay, I mean, you can't blame a person though. You can't, because what's the biggest thing about all animals and people, human beings are animals. First of all, don't convince yourself otherwise. There's that idea that, well, actually, I'm not going to go into it, but we are all animals, and the biggest thing about all animals anywhere, doesn't matter what kind, is we all want to survive. And in order to survive, we do have to think about ourselves first, last, and always. There's different ways you can work around that. The biggest thing, again, which we kind of touched on in the intro, which we're going to have to work on. I didn't think the intro flowed as much, but you
Matt, you did a
gotta
great job on the intro.
I think you did fine.
to to make a change, you need to first change yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds
Repeat that
very
last point,
about
buddy.
yourself first.
Repeat that last point. You broke up.
Did I break up?
Yeah.
That's not good. So what I said was that, it sounds very selfish. It sounds very narcissistic. You have to care about yourself first, right? But in caring about yourself first, you are fixing yourself first. You are focusing on improving yourself, because the more you improve yourself and the more you work on your mental and physical states, the more you can help others, right? So, it sounds very I'm kind of blanking on the word. um it sounds like it shouldn't work that way. It sounds like in order to help other people, you should only be focused on them, because if you're going to help another person, you got to understand what their plight is. But I mean, how are you going to help someone else if you can't even help yourself?
Because then someone else is going to need to help you.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
then
a
you're
simple
not helping
mathematical
anyone.
equation. You need to be secure yourself first before you venture out and help others. We discussed a little bit the ego side of things and having a big narcissistic ego, but I'd also love to explore the inverse of that, which is people that suffer from depression or anxiety. And what my personal feeling on it is they absorb a lot of negativity. They absorb that negative energy. They absorb the negative energy of the world around them. And it doesn't see you're frozen, you're stuck. And you
Yep.
can't go forward, you can't move out because you're absorbing this energy that is keeping you stuck and keeping you frozen. So
Yeah.
if you guys have some thoughts or opinions on that, uh, I think the Aikido philosophy and idea is extremely useful for people in those situations. It's like, how do I deflect this energy? How do I
Yeah.
redirect this energy away from me so I can move forward and not be under a spell of negativity?
Yeah. Aikido, I mean, that's why I said, man, Aikido, I love the mentality so much, which is why it makes me so sad that people say it's ineffectual. I mean, there's got to be a
Well,
way to
it's
take it and
ineffectual in
kind of.
physical combat, apparently, but as I was saying earlier, and the idea of realms, energy, ideas, information.
Well, I'm talking physical. I'm talking physical. It makes me sad that it's not physically. I want to make it, man. I want to find a
Well,
way, mix it with some other kind of martial art, make it effective because it's such a great idea, and it definitely
it probably
does
does
play a lot
work.
in your life.
Well,
I would. It works in non-MMA situations. Like if you're gonna take a mixed martial arts guy that just cherry picked all the best stuff from everywhere, he's gonna win. But I feel like Joe Schmo on the street fights a Aikido black belt, he's gonna get
Well,
pushed around a little bit and end up on the floor.
so here's the biggest problem with Aikido is Aikido is all standing. Once you're on the ground, they don't train you. I haven't seen any training, and I think I watched some of these guys talk about it. A lot of Aikido martial artists don't know what to do when they're on the ground, right? Which is where jujitsu comes into play. That's where the grappling comes into play. So that's why you need to mix it with some other. Because if you're only trained to stand on your feet and suddenly you're on the ground, you're not going to be able to protect yourself. In a fight, you could be on the ground super easy. Someone could take your feet out. They could knock you over. Anything can happen. You need to be prepared for anything.
From my understanding, Aikido is an extremely defensive martial art. It requires someone else's energy in order to work. It is not an offensive strategy by any means. It's purely defensive.
Yep.
But the thing is, offense typically wins when applied directly and acutely on the weakness of the defense. So, I mean, as you were just saying, once you're on the floor, you're on the floor. And you don't know how to get up, you don't know how to get out. So,
Game over.
yeah.
So you don't want to be in
in the
game
realm
over.
of ideas, you're requiring the energy of someone else in order to produce your strategy, and that's not a lasting strategy for me. You need to go on the offensive, and you need to know how to grapple with ideas and with people, both spiritually, physically, and mentally. You need to have some offensive tools in the toolkit, more so than just having a purely defensive strategy. You shouldn't have an all or one principle.
Yeah, simply put, I mean, you got to find a balance between it all. Everything needs to be in balance. We may have talked about this in the past. It might have been one of them that unfortunately was a practice run for us. But, when there's light, there's dark. Without light, there is no dark, and vice versa. Life and death. Without life, there's no meaning to death, and vice versa. So everything's in balance, right? And it's the same thing with this offensive and defensive strategies. A truly effective martial art has to have a mix of both, right? If Aikido is strictly defensive, then it's not going to be truly effective unless you throw in some, offensive maneuvers. It's got to be balanced. So if that's the case, you do have to throw some stuff in there, right? You do have to grapple a little bit. Cedric liked that one.
Well, no, I was just thinking about how we got so deep into Aikido and whether it's a decent martial art.
Because
Like all
Aikido's
this
cool,
stuff.
man, and I wanted to be cool. But I
No,
don't.
no,
God,
You're
I
admitting
agree.
that it's lame. I want it to
Huh?
be cool.
It is cool. No, it is. It
Oh,
is cool. No, but okay. Look.
no, that's
So,
a good
like I
point,
said, I've been
Tom.
watching a lot
I
of.
agree with Tom there. Tom's right.
I think it's bloody brilliant, but not as a physical strategy.
No, but I want it to be physical. So I want it all encompassing, Tom.
But then you're
Yeah.
diluting the purity of Aikido by introducing other philosophies and martial arts, correct?
Well, so see, I actually think that's a dangerous thought because nothing should be pure. Because if something is pure,
There's nothing sacred.
no, Tom, listen to me. Because say, for example, an idea. Say your idea of a pure idea is only one side, one coming from one source, right? The way to make a good idea is to take someone else's ideas and your ideas, mix them together, and create a better idea, right? If you're only relying on your own ideas, then you're never going to progress, or at least as fast as you could. You know, the reason why we progress so fast now is because we live in this economy where, everything's global and we can share ideas on a global scale. So purity in that sense, nothing should be pure. Everything should be intermingled. Everything should be working together. And so Aikido, yes, the mentality is great, but unfortunately, if you want to be truly successful, it needs to mix with something else. It needs to mix with this offensive form of martial arts in order to be truly effective. And maybe it's not strictly Aikido, but at least it's something that takes the best ideas from one and the best ideas from another to make the best of a totally new thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and that goes to associative learning and pulling from different schools and thoughts and ideas. And nothing's static. And of course, Aikido will be changing. Maybe you'll be the one to change it, Matt. If you
Dude, we're
if you
gonna
ultimately get into martial arts.
we're gonna piss off a lot of martial arts people talking about these.
We're gonna piss a lot
Oh,
of people
that's
off.
the next Chuck Norris. Next Chuck Norris right there.
We'll see what happens, man. The more I read this book, the more I want to get into this stuff. I mean, it's so cool. You're mixing, the body, the physical, and the mental. It seems cool, man. Plus, you can handle yourself. I mean, say something does come up. Bruce Lee definitely says in this. He says, the goal of a true martial artist is, you want to avoid confrontation at all costs. But if you have to, you got to be able to take care of yourself. So, do we have any last thoughts? We're gonna have to move on to the next chapter.
Next chapter.
Next chapter. Cedric, this is the one you were real excited about. Zen breathing. Zen breathing is really cool. Zen breathing is fantastic. I would recommend everyone try this. Let's figure out how to do it. Let me give a little prelude. So the author Joe, he was training under a master. I believe this is for Aikido. So we're still under Aikido, and he said they practice breathing. He thought it was crazy. How do you practice breathing? How do you get better at it? Everyone knows how to breathe, so that doesn't make sense. But crazy enough, there's better ways to breathe, apparently. Explaining a little bit more, what he said was that, before all these trainings that he had with his Aikido master, they would all sit there and they would take 4 deep breaths, or excuse me, he would take a deep breath for 4 counts. And then he would hold it. I don't know if he said for 3 seconds or for 10 seconds. 10 seconds seems a little long. But then he would let it out of his mouth for another 4 counts. And he'd keep doing it in and out, in and out. And if you haven't practiced that, he said it's easy to start panting and you think too much about it. And sometimes you got shaky breathing and this and that. But he said the longer you do it, the more your body comes to center. The more you he said the body gets warm and you calm yourself and things become a lot easier. It's like you're pushing external thoughts and ideas out of your mind. You're only focusing on the breathing. As long as you think of the breathing as fog, say you're breathing in fog and then you exhale the fog out of your mouth, you come to center, right? And the reason why this is so important, and I'm so happy you put this in here. I'm not happy this happened to him. I wish it didn't. But he said he was on vacation in the south of France, right? And he was with his wife, and one day they were driving in the morning, and he's got this intense stomach pain. He said he also had headache, and then he started convulsing, and his teeth were chattering, and his wife grabbed him a napkin. He wiped his mouth, she threw it out the window because there's a bunch of blood on it. Well, what ended up happening was he got this disease called Weil's disease from some water in Spain. And apparently, most people who get that disease die. It kills a lot of people, unfortunately. But what he was able to do was he did that Zen breathing, especially when he was thinking about the idea that he might die and his heart started palpitating. And they were about to use a defibrillator on him. But he said, no, this is ridiculous. He did his Zen breathing. He came to center and he controlled his body enough to where his heart stopped beating so fast. So the doctors thought that was incredible. And apparently every time he thought he was going, every time the doctors told his wife that he was gone, he did the Zen breathing. He came back. 3 weeks later, he came out, right? And they said it was incredible. So, I mean, that is really powerful. That is really powerful that we can save our own lives just by breathing. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I think a lot of things, and then also thought just had. Imagine we get to a point, because like really our body can create everything in itself
Yeah.
when it comes down to it. Like your body can create new bone, it can create
Create
new brain
everything?
cells, everything. Yeah, everything in your body, your brain can create it. So imagine if we could somehow figure out a way to have our brain just create stuff. Like we could think so hard that we have cancer. Just think about it, and then our brain would kill off all the cancer cells and then stop doing that.
Mental imagery?
Yeah, it's imagine a car. Like you can like sometimes you can plug into a car and like you can like do a couple things and it'll
Yeah.
like help reset the O2 sensors and you're good and your car runs fine.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could do that in your body.
If
Because a
you
lot of
could
times
control.
like yeah, because think about it. A lot of these issues that people have, like a stroke, like if you were to look at the entire body, the issue that's having is very small, but it caused a massive, impact on us. But imagine if your body could like sense that and then attack it and not do. I mean, obviously we do have some of that, like immune systems, but if it was like a much more like purposeful thing, that was just more of a thought. That would be super cool. Like if you could
So,
meditate so hard that you could like cure cancer for yourself.
so Cedric, it's really funny you say that. Later in the book, not in these lessons we're discussing today, but he talks about mental imagery. He talks about, focusing with your mind. And he talks about a martial arts master who I think he broke some bricks with his hand. He's supposed to break like, I don't know, maybe it was 10. Once we get to the chapter, we can verify. But he broke his hand doing it. And so he went to the doctor and he said his bones were completely
Oh yeah,
shattered in
no,
his hand.
yeah, the little what was it? The little man? Was it
Yeah,
that
so he,
guy?
he started imagining every night that
Yeah.
little men were coming and they fixed his bones. Then after 6 weeks, his hand was better, right? And then they had to fix the ligaments. And then 6 weeks later, the ligaments were better. And then he went back and did it again in dramatically shorter time than what the doctors anticipated it'd be. And he did it, and his hand was better than ever. So there is definitely something to that. And we'll go into a little bit more when we get to that chapter. But in terms of the Zen breathing, I mean, yeah, if you focus enough, maybe you can control that stuff. Maybe you can gain a better control of your body. And isn't that weird that they had these ideas way back when these martial arts were invented? And I mean, so here we are, you know, 2021, and people still don't know that. How did that happen? Or people think it's
Um,
like, mysticism. People think, oh, it's magic. You can't really control your body. How does that happen, man?
I don't know. It would just I just still think it'd be great if we could just like ECU plug it in, figure out what your issues are, you know, have your that would just be great. Like imagine if you had that kind of power though, like that, because like to really affect change on your body. Oh, Top, your opinions.
Well, I definitely think that you have the ability to make changes in your body just purely through your mental state. Whether it's breathing or thinking, I think both have profound effects on our physical um, what do you call it? In the physical world, positive thinking, breathing, imagining are all things that affect us in ways that I don't even think we can begin to comprehend. I love the example that Matt brought up of the gentleman later in this book who imagined little men going to fix his hand every single night. And
Have you tried that, by the way? When I read that chapter, I
don't have
started
a
because
broken
I had like
hand,
a headache. I had like a headache, and I imagined like a roller was rolling out the part of my head that was hurting. And after like 5 minutes, I swear to God, no, I swear to God, I was feeling better. So
No, I could totally agree with that.
I completely agree with the point. I just find it funny imagining Matt, rolling on his brain.
yeah, like one of those like in a kitchen, like a dough roller, That's what I imagined.
Okay.
It was like
A
right up
rolling
there.
pin?
Yeah, rolling pin.
Hey, if it works, it works. No,
Dude, it worked. It got it done. Got the job done.
Oh.
No.
Curing cancer, one thought at a time.
That was where if that's your admittance early on, there was a moment where when I was way younger, maybe like 8 or 9 or so, I just consistently imagined myself getting taller, and here I am. So, like every night, I would just imagine myself just stretching out, growing longer, and growing bigger.
Out.
And
Tom, how tall are you, Thomas?
I'm 6'5".
I don't know if our viewers 6'5". Holy
6'5",
cow!
yeah.
And Cedric, how about you?
6'7". Tom's a dwarf.
6'7".
I'm
Oh,
a
Tom,
dwarf.
you didn't.
I didn't think hard enough.
You didn't think hard enough, man. That's not
Cedric
good.
beat me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, how tall
Matt's
are you?
really short.
Yeah.
Matt,
I didn't think at all, so I'm surprised I ended
tall
up
are you?
being 6'3". I'm surprised I even got to where I got because I didn't even think about it. I was just like, well, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Here I am. Maybe if I did think, I'd be taller than all of you.
Yeah, 6'3" is pretty short, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have the ability to mentally will into existence things. Now it's not
Within our bodies.
Well, within our bodies, but also into our physical world. It's not as easy as like imagining, $1 million in front of you, but you can imagine ways to make $1 million.
So Conor McGregor, the law of attraction. Have you guys looked into that? Have you heard that? The law of attraction?
Well, law of attraction, there's many different laws of attraction. Which one are you referring to?
Okay. No, what are you referring to? Really, the law of attraction, Conor McGregor, he says, him getting into where he's at today, I think he was working as a plumber and he hated it. And so he thought every day, I'm going to get out of this. I don't know if he specifically said he was going to do martial arts, but he said he was going to get out of it. And he kept training every day harder and harder. And just through that perseverance of the mind and convincing himself that's what he was going to do. Well, look at where he's at today. So he says that's the law of attraction. What the law of attraction was in his definition is you think it and it becomes, right? So that's why it's important to say, I will accomplish this, not I will not accomplish or I will not fail this or something. It's like you always want it to be positive. You always want positive wording, positive verbiage, and just what you're gonna do. And for the most part, it'll come true. Is that what you were describing?
Kinda. I mean, there's the law of attraction in physics.
No.
I mean,
that's not what I was.
There's a lot of different laws of
nice
attraction.
try, Matt. Nice try.
Law of attraction in physics, dude. You explain that one to me.
I believe the law of attraction. I think the law of attraction pertains to
gravity. Are you
to
talking
molecules
about gravity?
being attracted to each other, or elements like electrons and things like that. It's a law of attraction, where if one element has 3 and another one has 1, they bond together. Because they're looking for.
This is on a macro scale. This is on a Conor McGregor mixed martial arts scale.
Yeah, the law from an MMA fighter.
It didn't come from him. It came from he just used it. You know what? I'm gonna look it up. All right, we're gonna do this present now.
Sure. All right.
Yeah,
do the Google search. What is the law of attraction? Yeah. So.
What comes up first?
But no, what I'm about to say next, there's multiple different instances of it. Let's see. This oh yeah, Matt keeps his computer in black and white.
I do. Yeah, I got to be careful. I don't want too many people seeing what I'm doing here.
Yeah, we just saw your phone number.
Oh, stop looking at my stuff, dude.
You pulled it out.
Dude, just because I pulled it up for you to see doesn't mean you can look at it all. All right, law of attraction. New thought philosophy. Strange it doesn't talk about electrons and protons. Okay, in New Thought philosophy, can you guys see this, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. In New Thought philosophy, the law of attraction is a belief that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences into a person's life. Belief is based on the ideas that people and their thoughts are made from pure energy, and that a process of like energy attracting like energy exists through which a person can improve their health, wealth, and personal relationships. There's no empirical scientific. We're going to ignore this empirical stuff because it's real and it works. Okay.
I'm Googling it myself. Because I definitely know.
Dude, we just looked at it, Tom. We just saw it.
Tom's like, no.
Okay, Cedric, you go ahead, man. Tom's trying to call me out. It's on Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't lie. It does. Sometimes. You gotta be careful
the law of
when checking
attraction
sources.
thing. I don't really know where Tom was going with the positive, negative, like electron thing.
I thought it like totally summed up what we were talking about. He's like, "Oh, well, you bring into life what you imagine."
I pulled up something that I was referring to quantum physics. I'd have to look into it more later, but whatever.
You can't prove me wrong.
Tom's like, it's quantum physics.
We just saw it, Tom.
Sure. All right. Law of attraction. Yeah. No, I think. What I did see from the quantum physics is that
studied physics. I have never heard of law of attraction.
That energy, that positive energy, is definitely. Okay. I'm gonna just back out of this conversation. Whatever. What I was originally gonna say a few minutes ago was that there's a lot of stories out there of people that have been paralyzed, and they think about just focusing on moving one pinky, one finger, and they just focus all their mental energy on trying to recreate that feeling and willing it to happen again. And there's instances where a lot of people have done this one by one by one and have been able to essentially unparalyze themselves. There are stories of that, and most notably in a book, I believe it's the Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, where he recounts a story of this type of gentleman who was paralyzed, and all he had time to do was think and will into existence the ability to walk again, and what it would feel like to. He got so attuned with himself. And after that, he eventually became a psychologist, and that's how his story ultimately got known, was that he became this incredibly attuned body language expert. And I forget his name, but his story is in the Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. I forget which chapter.
He was talking about how you can study someone's body movements, right? They say like 70 to 90% of human interaction is nonverbal cues, through nonverbal cues.
Precisely.
So he had, was it cerebral palsy? No, it wasn't cerebral palsy, was it?
I forget the exact name of the gentleman as well as his condition, but he was paralyzed.
Yeah, he was paralyzed. Yeah, and then he came out of it, and then he found that he could find people's true motives and intentions just by studying their body and the way they were sitting, the way they interacted, the way they walked. Just through a lot of practice and a lot of studying of people. That's pretty incredible. It's like Sherlock Holmes stuff.
I'm starting to remember a little bit more of the story. I think the reason he got so attuned to body language was that his paralysis went so far as to where he couldn't even speak. So the only way he could, um, essentially, he lived in a large family, like, you know, 10 kids or so, plus his parents, and he was always in the bedroom, and he basically watched everyone all the time because he couldn't speak,
Mm-hmm.
and he just consistently watched and listened because that is what entertained him, and he got so
Yep.
attuned to reading body language and matching up people's words with their body language, and that just shows you the power of focusing on a specific thing and analyzing everything about that particular thing. Because if you're just listening to the words, you would get a certain story, but if you're looking also for the body language, you have a complete different story. And this applies to the mind and focusing internally as well. You focus on lifting a finger. You the power of our thoughts in our brain is absolutely immense, and focusing it and applying it directly can be an incredibly rewarding thing.
And a shortcut to getting there is practicing the Zen breathing. I
Yes.
think that was
Well, there are
so
no
the Zen
shortcuts,
breathing,
but
it
I think that's
centers
one
you.
of the things that, at least in this case, centers John.
Get you started.
Gets you started.
So this is one of the later chapters, and Cedric knows I am all into this stuff. Flow states are incredible. In getting in a consistent flow state as they describe in this book is it or mushin is I mean that's peak human performance. That's accomplishing what you can't, whatever you put your mind to. It happens through intense focus, and it's like that voice inside your head that tells you can't do things. It goes quiet, right? And then your creativity, your um, you know thought processing, everything becomes unconscious, and you can accomplish anything, right? But Zen breathing is a great way to get into it. And what they say about that in some of Stephen Kotler and Jamie Will, who wrote the book Stealing Fire and Rise of Superman, they say that meditations and breathing, it's all good because it centers you, but you need to throw the physical aspect into it, because to truly experience it, you need to mix both the mind and the body, which is again another example of balance, right? We were talking about Aikido needs to be offensive, defense to be effective. It's the same thing. If you truly want to use peak performance, we all think that to perform at our peak mental capabilities, we need to just use our minds a bunch. But the thing is you need to use your body too. So whether that be working out, whether that be extreme action sports, whether that be martial arts is a great example. Use your body, mix that with the mind, and it's a lot easier to get into these flow states. But Zen breathing is a way to center, and it's a good way to kind of kickstart that ability to jump into that flow state.
Yeah.
It's like the
So he
task
knows I'm all
manager
about
of
that
the
stuff.
mind. You helped me out with this the other day, but if a certain program on your computer isn't quitting, you access the task manager. And I feel like breathing is our task manager. And we
Tom,
kind
that
of,
was me. I told you.
that's what I said. You helped me out with the
I told you that.
No,
the,
pumped
the
when you
task
told him
manager.
that.
I'm not trying. I was trying to give you credit, but
Yeah, I
I'm
thought he
tying
gave
it
you
back to the
credit.
breathing.
So the task manager.
Yes, the breathing is like the task manager of the mind, where you're able to then access the different programs and thoughts in your body. Like for instance, in the paralysis case, you breathe, you think, and you focus. Breathing allows the mind to relax itself and focus. I'm sorry if my
Sometimes you gotta.
analogy or metaphor
Sometimes you
got very
no,
confusing.
no. It's no. That was good. I mean, the task manager. Sometimes you got to restart it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And restart. Sometimes you got to clear some of the stuff out of the way, and Zen breathing is a good way to clear some of those thoughts and internal apps, you want to call them, out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Especially
Right?
if they're not closing, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Something about I like Microsoft, but when they don't close, man, it's like it's pretty ridiculous. I got to send out this email. I got to go check this thing on the internet. It's not helping. All right, you ready? Go with the current. Go with the current. We actually already talked about this. It's up to you guys. You guys want to really discuss it? It's just talking about Aikido, and it's the flow, and it's the kind of redirecting attacks, and redirecting energy. We already discussed this. If
Well,
people
give
want
the preface for the chapter at the very least. And
Yeah, yeah. I do like your prefaces, Matt, by the way.
I love your prefaces.
thank you. So, the author said that he was practicing a move in Aikido practice one day, and he said he wasn't really successful at it. So what he ended up doing is he threw this kind of tricksy move into it, and he pushed the guy down. He used his force and he pushed the guy down. And he turned around, and the master's assistant looked at him and shook her head, and she said, "Look," she said, "you were successful because luckily you're stronger than the guy, but say that guy was stronger than you." The point of Aikido is to not face a force head on with the force of your own. It's to redirect that force and again push it from behind. So, to master this skill of Aikido, he had to not use the force and kind of move around and kind of flow around it like water. It's a lot more natural. I think one important thing that we didn't discuss in the earlier chapter that I have written here in the notes is, the important principle is you need to yield. You kind of need to yield to the force at first, and yield enough to not let it harm you. Right? So it's not necessarily that you're cowering from the force and that you're avoiding the force, but you need to let it come close enough to you to the point where you see an opportunity to redirect it and take advantage of it. Right? But if you're trying to force it head on, you might be getting rid of your opportunities. And actually, that's pretty. I didn't think about that until saying it. But yeah, maybe that's a huge point of it. Maybe you do need to let things get close enough to you. He discussed a little later with the circle, backing your circle up, letting them step, just at the edge of the circle. But if you let it come close enough and don't let it deter you and don't let it bother you, to where you can find that opportunity to redirect it, that might be the best way to do it. It's might be a little more risky for a lot of those risk averse people, but I mean, it's truly effective way to deal with issues and deal with problems. Sometimes you got to take it. Sometimes you got to understand. And actually, what you were saying earlier, Tom, you can sit on that rock in terms of moving forward. You can sit on that rock and be happy on your rock because nothing's bothering you. But if you keep climbing over new rocks, bigger rocks, higher rocks, eventually you're going to get to a point where you can turn around. You're much stronger. You're much more mentally fit, and the view is going to be much better than that small rock you started on. So, it's kind of yielding to it, understanding that you need that force to kind of come at you at first, and then taking it, redirecting it into something positive that is benefiting you. Not necessarily, harming another person, though. Everything should be kind of beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. We should, as a culture, as a society, focus on how our actions can benefit not only ourselves but those around us. I think we live in a culture of exploitation now, where we believe that success has to rely in climbing over others, that the hierarchy is built upon stepping over people, but I think overall that is a very slim pyramid with a very few controlling the very many. Whereas you should
Yes.
be focusing on building as many broad and thick layers up as possible of people, that we have less people, that we have more people at the top making decisions and sharing ideas, in a broader tent rather than a super narrow intent in having a single person making all the decisions. That's just at the top level. But on the everyday level, we should be working on building up our communities, our neighborhoods, helping out our neighbor, and all these locally based things. So we all improve the culture from the ground up. That is the way to do it, instead of how the hell do I get out of this town? This is, holding me back type attitude. How can I focus my energy to build up the people around me, instead of how do I abandon the people around me?
Well, that's all. I mean, that's all part of the sense of kind of what we're trying to promote here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
change comes
Culture.
individually. It comes from you first, right? And if you're, from what you said earlier, if it's very narrow and there's only one person on top, how can that one person at top, if they've got so many people under them, how are they going to know the issues and the plights of every single person below them? Is that even possible? If the answer is no, then the next question I would say is, well, how can you expect someone who doesn't know all the problems, or specifically your individual problem, to make the most important decisions for you? How does that make sense? If you can give me an answer, I'd like to discuss. But again, if the answer is no, then what's the next step? It's to work and solve your own problem as best you can that is beneficial to other people. Again, everything needs to be positive and everything needs to be beneficial to others. And the crazy thing is even though it sounds counterproductive, if you help yourself first, you help your mental health, you help your physical health, you help your financial health, you can help other people with their mental health, with their physical health, with their financial health, because you understand what they're going through now and you understand how to overcome that. How can you help someone if you don't know how to overcome their problems? Tell me how you can do that. And again, we'll discuss. But again, if the answer is you can't, then you need to do it yourself first, right? So, in terms of helping the community and the culture, you got to start small. Start with yourself, then start with your neighbor, then start with your neighbor's neighbor, and then start branching out. Branch out to your small community, whether that be your neighborhood. Okay, now you got your neighborhood. Okay, now let's go to the next few neighborhoods, and then you branch out to the city and you keep branching out. But it's pretty incredible. If you really think about it, everything's connected. Just as change needs to happen small scale first, it's the same thing as working out. It's the same thing as learning something new. When you're working out, if you want to lift, 100 pounds, sometimes you got to start with 10 pounds because you're not strong enough to lift 100 pounds. Then you have to slowly build up 10 to 20 to 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 100. Learning something. Say I want to solve, Pythagorean's theorem. Okay, well, I've never learned anything about math in my life. So I'm going to have to start with addition and subtraction. And, then I'll get to division and multiplication and the harder aspects of math. And then you get into geometry eventually. And then you realize that you can use some of these ideas of addition, subtraction, multiplication, etc., to solve some of these geometric functions. And so, again, it's all starting small that builds to something big. And it's really, really easy to lose that, to forget that is how things work. It's really easy, again, to just try to jump to the conclusion and to just try to jump to that solution. But if you don't know how to handle the smaller things that lead up to it, you can't handle the larger thing.
And it's very painful to be in a situation where you're you're trying to accomplish something, but you realize you don't have all the tools necessary to
Mm-hmm.
finish
Yep.
what you've started. It's incredibly frustrating because then you got to go back and you got to relearn everything. You got to say like, what am I missing? I know I'm missing something.
Tom,
And
sounds like you have some personal experience.
well, I mean, I do with like building websites and things like that, where I believe something is possible with my current tool set.
Mm-hmm.
But once I start understanding the problems more, like it's easy. Like if you're trying to build furniture and you have the wrong screw, you understand that, or if you have the wrong like tool, you understand, you know what the tool is because you know what the screw is. Oh, I don't have.
Yep.
I have a Phillips head, and this is a flathead.
Yep.
That's super simple. But when you're trying, but when it's not as obvious as that, like building a website or something extremely complex, where you have to essentially make your tools. You don't know what to build. You have to go back to the drawing board and say, how do I get around this situation? Which ties back all the way to the first chapter we discussed tonight. Taking that step back and really understanding what you're doing. So.
Inactive activity. And so, Tom, just so everyone has a greater understanding, that website, this is Sterling Digital Properties, right? Where you are going, you're doing the process, and you're helping everyone else out. Is that one we're discussing?
It's. I mean, we definitely don't need to discuss my business because I don't have something for everybody.
Well, you don't need to. You don't need to
Well,
discuss
no,
your
no,
business.
but
He's a very humble guy. But he puts in the work to help people build their own businesses by giving them a domain, by giving them a website that actively brings in more customers to help your business grow, your independent business grow. That's pretty incredible. Cedric, I don't know, man. We had that discussion. I don't think we really hit how incredible that is.
It is crazy. Not most people would not partner with businesses the way that Tom Sterling does, providing immense value to you, getting premium domain names, a premium service, that having someone just manage everything and get additional traffic to your existing website while having a consultant there that is an expert on SEO and online marketing. It's an incredible deal. I mean, just being able to partner with Tom is.
Thank you, John. Sorry. Thank you.
And see, the best thing is that you're going to be happy you did it, and you're going to be happy the whole time you're doing it because Tom is such a great guy. He has such great character. You know, we discussed. I don't know if we did discuss this in the last conversation we had, but you know, right now everyone's pretty interested in success comes from personality ethics, right? It comes from always have a good smile, always be talkative, always, you know, interact well with other people, pretty much be extroverted. But, you know, where true success comes from is your character ethics. It comes from strong character, someone who's able to, you know, maintain their humility, their perseverance, and their hardworking mentalities. And you know what? Thomas Sterling, he meets that. Not a lot of people do.
I have always said that vanity, or that a personality is a vanity metric, whereas character is a moral and ethical and principled ethic. I mix up all those words, but no,
that was pretty good.
Character is your concrete, whereas personality is just kind of how you show those characters, how you express those character traits to the world. So if you have corruptible and poor character, then you have to overcompensate with personality that once you look through the veneer, you realize that it's a bad foundation, that there isn't really much here. Whereas someone that actually has a ton of character has the platform to build up a beautiful personality and how it's packaged to the world. Like, personality is the packaging, whereas character is the goods.
Character's the goods, baby.
Character's the goods, and personality is the packaging. But once you
Thomas
tear through
Sterling's
that packaging,
got the packaging and the goods.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Tom, as much as I like talking up your business, because it's fantastic, we should move on to the next chapter. We should move on. This is a good one. We kind of hit on it earlier. It's called Anger Without Action. This lesson was pretty great. It's very, very, very important for that idea of improving yourself to help others, right? So anger without action. So Joe, the author, he started by saying he practiced Wing Chun, right? Under Jim Lau, as we mentioned earlier. He said in a lot of their practices, a lot of their drills, he worked with a sparring partner, and the sparring partner would often, you know, he said there'd be a flurry of fists and hands by his face, right? Because it's a lot of quick movements, all right next to the head. He said sometimes he'd get hit, sometimes he'd get punched. It'd be by accident, They wouldn't try to, but he said he couldn't help himself. He'd tense up, he'd get mad, and he'd kind of get that idea and that thought that, I want to react, I want to hit back, because that's it, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to hit someone back who hit them? That's just normal human being reactions, right? Well, Jim Lau, he noticed this, and he said, hey, I noticed that you stiffen up when you get hit. He said, it kind of looks like you want to hit the guy back. And Joe, he got embarrassed, and he got all sad, and he said, you know what? Yeah, unfortunately, I do, and I hate that I harbor those feelings. And Jim said, no, listen. He said, that's natural. He said, as a human being, we all have these experiences. We all experience this. The important thing is to not let it consume your actions, right? Don't let anger consume your actions, because if you react, or if you come at someone with anger and with a personality of hostility, they're going to react kindly. It's like, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's the same as that, right? But in terms of anger. And so, going back again to controlling yourself, this is the most powerful sentence, I think, or quote from Jim Lau that I've gotten so far out of this book, because he says, anger can consume someone's actions, right? So to control anger is to control your own actions, your own emotions, etc. He raised the question, how can you expect to control someone else if you cannot control yourself? I'm going to leave it there. You guys go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the quote. Yeah. So how can you control, what was it? How can you control someone else if you can't control yourself?
Yes.
Well, you can't. I think it takes a master to even properly control himself. And I think it takes even a better person to truly be at the point where they can, have so much that they can give to another.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the not letting anger consume you piece is by far the most important thing, because no one likes being angry anyways, and anger
Yep.
does not beget positive action in any way. Now, being driven or whatever might, but don't don't let anger be even in your life, because that anger just breeds resentment, and resentment breeds hate, and hate leads to the dark side.
Hmm. Yeah, we all like Luke. We don't like what happened to Anakin. That was pretty bad.
No.
Cedric, going off of that, is it that you shouldn't have anger in your life, or is that you should follow Tom's Aikido flow, and you should
I think,
redirect
yeah,
that into something positive? But how do
yeah,
you
it's yeah.
redirect something if it's not in your life at all?
Anger not being in your life at all.
Yeah, so are you saying that we shouldn't have anger in our life at all?
I think it's like what Tom was saying. It's like it's redirecting the anger, understanding, because we're human, so you might have emotion, but I feel like it's minimizing that. So it's like maybe you're angry instead, where someone is angry for an hour or 2 hours because something happened. It's like you're able to just process it very fast and understand that it's a good thing, and then move on. Because if you look back, I mean, think of how many times you're mad, and then if you were to look back on that situation, you might even remember it as you having a good time.
Yeah.
And so if you can just process it as fast as possible, then you minimize any of that. Not to say that you might not be angry, but it's like, to Tom's point, it's like you got to redirect that flow. So it's coming at you, it gets right in your circle, boom, you're
Mm-hmm.
identifying that as something positive that's happening to you.
Oh, and maybe, you guys ready? Maybe you step back to address
Yeah.
the situation. Maybe you get that active inactivity. You step
Yeah.
back. You understand the situation. You understand that, hey, whoa, if I react to this guy, because I'm angry, and I react with this hostility, maybe that's going to be pretty negative for me in the long run. Isn't that
Yeah.
weird that maybe these chapters can go together? There's no way that guy intended for that to be the case with this book.
I don't think he did. I feel like he just wrote them randomly, and then, like, how you can like put in numbers and it'll give you random numbers. That's how he did it.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure.
None of this relates. Don't look into it. Anyone listening to us, don't look into it. It doesn't relate at all. Just random life lessons that martial artists for many, many, many centuries have never realized are all connected. I'm totally kidding. It's all connected.
Please look into it. Buy the book.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Tom, any thoughts?
Any thoughts? I
Tom,
think
you're shining today, man. I'm really looking
I'm
forward to
sterling
this.
today. Thank you.
Sterling.
Yeah, just sterling, please. I think anger is an incredibly useful fuel, but only applied correctly. It's like dynamite, right?
Yes.
It's incredibly productive and useful when used for what it's used for. But when we use it incorrectly and we use it to cause harm, then that's bad. Anger is something that's extremely potent, and it could drive us to do a lot of things. We can be angry about our current culture, and it can drive us to action, to want to build a better world. And that anger can be harnessed and extremely useful. However, when that anger is improperly applied, like an explosive, it can do a massive amount of harm to both the individual using anger as well as to others they inflict that upon.
So what's the author saying? I mean, how should that be used then? How should this anger be used?
I'm just saying how I think it should be used.
What is the author saying? How is the author saying it should be used? Because we're talking about what the author's discussing. I think it's all related, Tom. I'm just trying to connect it all. I think exactly what you're saying is exactly, but I just want to make sure. I just want to connect it just for, the show's sake. For anyone listening to this.
For everybody listening to this. Hey, club members. Remember to subscribe to the like button. As always, club members. Tom is the best, and Matt. So subscribe to the like button for us.
Hey, don't forget about Cedric.
And for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Subscribe to that.
Someone may even get a free gift. Maybe if you subscribe, just give it a try. Maybe you'll get something. Who knows?
It might happen.
Cedric, what are you putting up?
I don't know. Reach out to Cedric enough times.
Reach out to Cedric. Reach out to Cedric and get that gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Oh, also,
Matt, you put me on the spot there. I don't appreciate that.
No.
I don't have my notes up on the chapter, so I'm like,
I know how it connects. Huh? What were you saying, Cedric?
Oh, I was just saying, when I was listening to Tom's point about the anger, I just okay. Did you know MSNBC has it's on Fridays? This dude goes on and he talks about rap music and how it relates to current politics.
Ah.
You even know that
rap
was a thing.
And politics.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I was watching at my grandparents' house. My grandpa was like, "Oh yeah, he's got Meek Mill on here all the time." I'm like, "What?"
Yes, it's all related.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to relate to a younger audience. It's not bad, for business. Oh, but my point, I get. The whole point. Sorry, so the whole point, rap songs. I just brought it up. So I was listening to this rap song, and there's a line in it, and the guy says there's this thin line between anger and hunger. And I think that's what Tom's talking about, because I feel like it's not that you're harnessing your anger. It's exactly what we were talking about with changing it. It's like you're changing it to drive you. You're hungry. It's like you're not mad at the world because you don't have any food. You're hungry, so you're going to kill something, get the food. Yep. It's like you're not mad at the world because you didn't get the thing you want. You're hungry because you're going to go get it. It's that's you can either be angry or you can go after, like what Tom was saying, you redirect it and use it for something good and go after what you need and what you want. Yeah. And there's a thin line between being angry and being hungry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I completely just mentally blanked out on the.
Hey, don't ever apologize. There's no apologizing on this show.
No,
we're all working to build a better
I just forgot
culture,
everything about
and to
the
do
chapter.
so, we need to have ideas that are ever revolving, right?
Yeah. No. Well, you asked me specifically what the author thought, and I was like, wait, what? What was his thought? I was thinking about my point.
Yeah,
Your point
I
is the
felt like a
same thing as
student
the
in
other.
class, Matt. I didn't appreciate that. No, I'm slowly starting to remember now, just a little bit about it, and I think how it all ties together with all these different chapters is it goes back to the point about patience and impatience. If anger is an emotion and it is something that can be used as fuel, and it can drive us to prematurely make decisions where we're in a mental state where we're not thinking rationally. We're not thinking logically about the situation. Because most of the time, anger is something that is a reactionary. We're reacting to someone else punching us. We're reacting to a bad grade, or we're acting to a bad report. We're reacting. Anger puts us in a reactive. It puts us in a defensive, and our initial reaction is to lash out. Is to be what do you call it? To be like I can't wait. I can't think about this. Warren Buffett has a fantastic quote where it's if someone makes you angry, don't instantly respond in anger. Wait a day or two to see if you feel the same way.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
And then if you still feel as strongly as you did when you initially had that emotion of anger, then you let it be known. But don't instantly telegraph how angry you are, because people can see that and they can manipulate that about you if they have nefarious intent. So I think what he's really explaining in this chapter is you gotta harness back that anger, but take that energy that has been produced in anger and apply it towards something positive, like thinking about how you're going to overcome this issue in a logical, rational, step-by-step way.
Keto, baby. Keto's the way to do it.
Make
Redirection.
It cool again, Matt. Make Aikido great again.
Try, man. I'll try.
Make Four Loko great again.
Oh no.
So Four Loko, I got.
I've
So
never
you
even
weren't
had
there,
a
man.
one.
But the first time ever played. Is this? Are we making this? This is like a kid friendly thing, or can we like talk like actual stuff? What are our thoughts?
We're not kid friendly. You don't want to be kid friendly.
Yeah, this isn't targeted for 13 and younger.
Okay, so the first time I played beer pong ever, I was playing with the specialists at Washington State, and they used Four Loko. It wasn't beer pong, excuse me. It was Rage Cage. It was Rage Cage, and they were using Four Loko.
That's not even that bad.
And I'd never played, Cedric. I'd never played, so I kept missing.
Sometimes we filled it in the death cup,
and I kept missing, and it got to the point where one of the other kickers, he was like, God damn it, man, I gotta drink this for you. I was like, you don't have to drink that. He's like, no, I have to. You're drinking too much. Yeah, it was a good time. So that's my Four Loko story. I haven't had it since. That was pretty bad.
Oh, well, I remember I was at a frat once. Four Loko story. At a frat once, I was like sophomore year or something. It was before they could have like real parties, so it was just the dudes over in the frat. Like I knew a couple of in it, so I just like came over there and we're drinking. And at some point during the night, we go down this like dude had like a big room, and so we're just like drinking there. And the reason why we'd gone down there is he was like, oh, like we'd ran out of beer. And so he's like, oh, I have some stuff in my fridge. Opens his fridge. Mini fridge is entirely filled with Four Lokos.
Nice.
Like the dude had like 40.
Nice.
In his fridge.
He's like, Cedric, you get 20, I'll get the other 20.
Yeah, basically. And we just all like start drinking the Four Lokos. I remember there was one kid who was like trying to get into the frat at the beginning of the year. And so shotgun's one of the Four Lokos sitting in this guy's room or whatever, and we can see the kid in the right. He's like in the hallway, and the door's open, so we can see him. And he like shotguns the Four Loko. We're all watching him. Does it, and holds it down for like maybe 10 seconds, and then just turns not towards us, but towards another room, and just projectile vomited on that room. And I like passed out on the couch, and I remember like in the morning I tried to get up, and like my shoes were stuck to the ground.
These stories are all on the internet now.
So okay, I kind of want to rein this in, because we're trying to like improve culture and stuff, and we're talking about some like college miscreant stuff. So,
Well, they
what's the
wasn't
lesson we
hazing. No
learned
one
from
told him to
this?
do
So
it. He just
let's
was
flip
like
this around.
decided to do it.
Yeah, let's flip this around, Cedric. What's the lesson we learned from this? How do you improve culture with this Four Locos story of just fantastic sticky shoes? How do we flip this around into a positive? How do we help? Okay, first of all, what I'm going to say is
How do
maybe
we
let's
fight
not make Four
degeneracy?
Loco. Huh? Great again.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. I guess the positive note is kids actually don't drink that stuff. It tastes horrible. And now, like, I think back, and I would never drink it at all. It sounds like a bad idea.
It's a rite of
And even when I
passage.
think back to it, it was mostly a
Rite
bad
of
idea.
passage.
It's a rite of passage.
So, yeah.
Basically, I think, along with controlling your anger, I would say anger is like a drug. I would say it's definitely a drug that gets you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. I think in the future we should read Stealing Fire again. But as we discussed on our past YouTube channel, all animals use drugs. Not just human beings. Like dolphins will chew on puffer fish, and they'll ingest their neurotoxin. Cows chew on some kind of grass that like hemp grass or something, and then cats have catnip, and animals are just they just use drugs, and it's weird because they make you do things. Tom thinks it's funny, man. We had a whole segment on it.
I
You
don't
should
just
watch
do
us talk
drugs,
about
man.
it.
Yeah, no.
You should
No, it
should
was
watch us
an
talk
interesting
about
part
it.
of the
No,
book.
but listen, because where I'm going with this is, drugs make you do things that you wouldn't normally do, and the most important thing that again all animals want to do is survive. And what drugs do that's the worst for us is it mitigates this drive to survive, right? They talked about how chimps would walk away from the herd, or they leave their children, or cats would mess up their brains or their livers or something by doing too much catnip, and cows might die if they eat too much, whatever. I think if it's hemp grass
Drugs
they'll
are
be
bad,
fine.
kids.
But I mean, basically, so again, just like a drug, I think anger makes us do things that we normally don't want to do. And so, in terms of your Four Locos story, alcohol is most certainly a drug, and if it makes us do things we don't want to do and shouldn't do because it's going to put you in a bad situation, maybe you should step back, use that inactive or active inactivity, and understand that, hey, this Four Loko is not going to be good for me. Maybe it might turn into a situation like my good buddy Cedric here said, might make me get my shoes all sticky. Not to go into the exact details that we went into. So, everything again is related, right? But it's stepping back, understanding the situation, and sometimes don't let that drug take advantage of you. Always be careful with what you're doing. Never take too much for yourself. It can end up very bad for you and a lot of other people. Just it's all about what we can control, and what we can control is how effective we are at helping other people. You take more drugs, you're gonna have a harder time helping people.
Yep.
You guys like how I tied that in? Back in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could spin any story any way you want and apply any mental framework to anything. And
Tom doesn't believe my story.
Yeah.
He's
What-
full of it
I
again.
believe your story. It's incredibly interesting when analyzing it in a vacuum, where it's just like we're just discussing completely something unrelated, but tied it back to what we were discussing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dolphins and pufferfish.
And karate and aikido, and it's all related, right? We live in
It is.
in a big world, and everything's
So,
a few
actually,
degrees removed from each other.
Can we delve into that? Can we delve into the fact that everything is actually connected, but for some reason human beings have the idea that things aren't connected? I mean, really
Are we going into conspiracy
think about
territory?
certain mathematical equations, certain functions that exist in nature. Like, for example, I can't think of the actual function. I'm going to have to look it up. I'll probably look it up and then present it to you guys. But there's some function that says that, and say there's like competing points or something, and it's growing on a scale. Say you got a 100 by 100 box, and, each tiny little box within it, so on a grid, is 1 by 1. If they all grow up, they're all competing with each other, right? They're all competing to grow the highest, till eventually you only have like a single strand going out here and out here, but at the bottom, it's a lot thicker. And so the incredible thing about that is that's exactly how trees work. That's how exactly how leaves work. If you think about it, that's exactly how our appendages work. It goes long and then it kind of. I'm gonna look it up so I
Look
can
it up, Matt.
kind of prove what I'm saying about this.
Matt, how
You
many more
guys
chapters
maybe
do we have
talk
to go?
about How much more?
Yeah. We're at 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got a
that's what I
few.
was thinking.
We got a few.
We got a few.
1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 left. Do you guys have it in you to do 4 more?
Negative.
No.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Well, we don't want the conversation to dip, and then we and that's fair. I'm tired. Tom's definitely really tired. And it took
Okay,
us
so
two
we did-
and a half hours to do 4.
I certainly care most about the quality of the content more so than the quantity of it. So we'll just have 4 parts to it.
4 parts it is. All right. So we got through 6 today. I guess to be safe, we'll do 6 to 8 next time, and then we'll do another 6 or so the last time.
Isn't it pretty amazing how we're literally tripling the amount of content that's actually in this book? Well,
that's like what they did with The Hobbit. You ever watch
Well,
The
that's
Hobbit
what they
movie?
do with the news. Do you ever see the news? They have
Yeah.
like 2 minutes of actual shit, and they'll make it into 24 hours. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the difference is, Cedric, is they don't have a lot of content to go off of, but they make you think it's a lot. We have a lot of content to go off of, and we're utilizing the time as effectively as we can to fit it all in. In fact, there's more content than we thought we needed to discuss.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
if anything, it's the opposite.
Well, yeah. I do enjoy our talk, by the way. It's always a good, I think Sunday's a good day to chat about this kind of stuff. You just come to the week.
Sunday,
Well, let's
Sunday,
close out the
Thursday,
stream
right?
and we'll discuss. We'll debrief. Subscribe to the like button as well as the subscription button, and yeah.
One sec.
Do it, Cedric.
Woo! Subscribe to that like button, baby. Come on. Do it for us. Do it for the club. You want it. We want you. Be a part of it. Be accepted.
Marketing.
You
Join
might
the
get a
club.
nice gift from Cedric, too.
Might get
Who
a nice
knows?
gift
It could
from
happen.
Could
Bug him enough.
happen.
Bug him
know.
enough. Bug us to bug him by
Excellent.
bugging him and not bugging us. You might get it.
Yeah. Could
All
totally
right.
happen.